Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. The campaign, yes, it is over and the transition just beginning. President-elect Trump now reaching out to people of both parties, including President Obama and both the president and Hillary Clinton today, speaking about moving on and also working with Trump. Let's bring in Laura Lister. She's live in D.C. with more. Lauren?
Good evening. President Obama today at the White House saying he spoke with Donald Trump on the phone early this morning, as did Hillary Clinton, the first female presidential nominee for a major party, conceding to the first president-elect who hasn't had either military or political experience. It comes after a dramatic upset, getting major reactions today. This morning, Hillary Clinton facing the nation after her shocking loss.
This is painful, and it will be for a long time.
Emotional at moments, Clinton now urging supporters to move forward.
Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
And President Obama aiming to unify the country behind the new president-elect.
We are now all rooting for his success. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
Emphasizing the bigger picture.
Everybody is sad when their side loses an election. We have to remember that we're actually all on one team. The presidency and the vice presidency is bigger than any of us.
Donald Trump overnight capturing the presidency in an historic and stunning victory, grabbing key battleground states and even taking traditional Democratic strongholds from Clinton, who polls had leading going into Election Day.
Ours was not a campaign, but rather an incredible and great movement.
The triumphant Trump delivering an acceptance speech overnight before ecstatic supporters of that movement, speaking to the whole country.
I promise you that I will not let you down. We will do a great job.
Republican leaders reacting.
Let me just say, this is the most incredible political feat I have seen in my lifetime.
And Trump will lead with a House and Senate controlled by Republicans. And tomorrow he'll be here in Washington meeting with President Obama at the White House. Live on Capitol Hill, I'm Lauren Lister, ABC News. Now back to you.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much. And let me bring in Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. He was with me at the desk all night. And what started as something where we had an inkling where it would end. Maybe we didn't know what the number would be. We couldn't have been more wrong. I think I speak for not just the two of us, but I think for just about everybody who sits at desks like us, let alone pollsters and prognosticators. Nobody saw last night coming. And then today, it was the morning after, and we're still trying to get our arms around it. But you've seen some exit numbers that at least, if not explaining it fully, start to give some of the answers as to how did we get here?
Well, first, to your first point, it was not only was Hillary Clinton leading in the polls going into last night, but the movement in the polls seemed to be towards Hillary also over the last 3 days of the campaign.
And if I can make a punctuation, Andrew, Donald Trump and his people didn't think they were winning yesterday. If they did, he wouldn't have been in Minnesota. And wouldn't have had the most schizophrenic final thing. Apparently, the word was they believed that it would take a miracle, their own words internally, apparently, to win yesterday. So to pretend that we, the media, missed all this, but the people on the inside got it, I think is being very disingenuous.
And they were calling reporters, too, trying to get their take on where they thought the races were in some of these states, because they didn't have, just like the rest of us didn't. And then we got the exit polls earlier in the day that seemed to confirm what we thought we were seeing in terms of the late poll numbers. But you mentioned some of the exit poll numbers that we have after the fact now. Let's go through some of them. And 4 in 10 voters said that they were hungry for change. And 7 in 10 were unhappy with the way Washington is working, or in this case, not working. Then as you look at some of the demographics involved, there was a big gender gap, and that's not a really big surprise. Trump beat Clinton by 12 points with men, but Clinton beat Trump by the same amount with women. And then Trump dominated with white voters. Regardless of gender, white women picked Trump by a 10-point margin. White men picked Trump by more than 30 points. And then finally, Trump dominated with non-college educated voters. Both men and women in that category overwhelmingly picked Donald Trump. One more, Trump did better than Romney's tally 4 years ago with blacks and Hispanics. He still got small shares of these votes, but it proved enough to help put him over the top. He even got strong percentages of people who said they didn't trust him or didn't think that he was qualified to be president. And he still managed to get a healthy percentage of those, between 20 and 25%, Rich. So it's some surprising numbers there, but also the breakdown on some of the gender and racial lines that we saw, not as surprising if you sort of anticipated going in. I think the big difference there were the margins, that Hillary Clinton needed a wider margin with women, didn't get it. Hillary Clinton needed a wider margin with minorities, didn't get it. So it's not the difference, it's the scope of that difference.
And we also, some other numbers was the turnout. The number of people voting total, I think blew people away, not just the early voting, but also the turnout. And across the board, it wasn't just the Latino electorate that turned out, but we saw a reversal here, an inverse of what we had seen in the past. Historically, if you said blue collar, high school educated, white voters, where are they going? They voted Democrat. If they were part of a union here, the union shop steward would say, you know, we're going with this guy because he's going to care about the middle class. He's going to fight for raising minimum wage. He's going to do the following. It's the opposite. White college educated men and women, they went with Hillary Clinton. Conversely, on the other side of the coin here, those people who felt left behind, they went with a billionaire in Donald Trump. And inexplicable in many ways, but nonetheless, that was the tale of last night.
And there were so many of those voters in states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. That was the last bit of the blue wall that Trump was, those were the states we were waiting for in the wee hours of the morning last night. That's why those states went to Donald Trump, and that's why Hillary Clinton lost the election.
And I bring in Dominic Carter right now, and, you know, some of the reaction, I mean, you were there, obviously, at the Javits Center, and you saw the mood shift from what was, you know, celebratory. They thought it was when, not if, to funereal at the end, and how it went down. We'll talk later as to the odd, we'll see it tomorrow, and then later this morning, obviously, earlier this morning, we saw the concession speech by Hillary after she made the phone call to the Donald. But nonetheless, the reaction I was hearing today, it was interesting. And you and I were on TV this morning around 10 o'clock, 10:30, something like that, and you had caught up with a woman after the concession speech from Hillary Clinton. And elderly African-American woman, I thought very articulate in terms of the point she had made, but you said at one point, you're very passionate, why? And I don't think this was somebody who throws around the term very easily, but she said, I feel what happened last night, in effect, was a referendum against people who look like me.
You know what, Richard?
You heard that a lot today, didn't you?
I heard that from, well, let me just backtrack for 1 second. When I knew at Clinton campaign headquarters, when Hillary Clinton was in trouble, it was odd of what happened. No elected official likes to be around a loser. And all of a sudden, not many elected officials were coming inside the convention hall. It was very weird. They were doing 2 rallies, one from inside, one from outside. De Blasio, Schumer, Cuomo, they were all outside. They never once came inside. That was the first sign that she was in serious trouble. The fact that they never came into the convention hall, the Javits Center. The second sign, Richard, and I'm going to address your question, it went from a joyous, historic occasion to a complete funeral within a matter of minutes. And people were just leaving, they were crying, you've seen the video. But to answer your question, everywhere I have gone over the last, 12 hours, you have a lot of people of color that feel like, frankly, that they're not part of the country. I mean, it's weird as it may sound, a lot of people are very, very upset at Trump's victory.
And I want to give credit. Van Jones, who you guys know is a contributor on CNN, he said something last night that really stuck with me when I saw some other coverage in the wee hours, or even earlier today. He said, you know what? There are people going to look at the returns of this, and white people are going to take, a lot of white people voted for Trump, be like, how dare you call me a racist? I'm not a racist. I went for somebody, I didn't want to vote for the status quo. My vote was really more about, I want to upend the system because the system hasn't looked out for me.
Yes.
But what might be a throwaway line that you say, oh, that's Trump being crazy or whatever. He was saying today, he said, I got staffers whose are Latino whose parents are saying, are they going to come for me? What happens to me? He said he had a friend who was Arabic who says, I don't know if I can let my kid wear a hijab to school. And these conversations that I think guys like you and me say, this is ridiculous, ignorant politics here, it's pandering to bases, but you know what? It's politics. To other people, it's a sign that, for example, the KKK endorsed Trump. I don't really believe that Donald Trump courted the KKK, but the fact of the matter is that he once hesitated to step away from David Duke. If you're a person of color today, you say, wait a minute, where is this guy on this?
Richard, I think he courted the KKK.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, and there were so many of these moments throughout the campaign that depending on the prism you looked at this through and your own personal histories and your family histories and all the rest, it changed things. Now, I do believe the vast majority of people who voted for Trump, don't have white sheets and all the rest and don't want to go back, to the Jim Crow days. But they feel they were left behind, and they finally felt somebody spoke truth to power where they are, and they didn't care. They didn't even like him, as you just said. A whole bunch of people didn't even like the guy. But nonetheless, that palpable anger that we saw come out last night, no more. I think, and I don't know if he's equipped to do it, but the next president-elect inherits a very difficult country who finds less and less in common with each other. And to me, people don't remember this. She actually won the popular vote last night. I mean, she lost the election fair and square in the Electoral College, but more people voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump last night. And he's going to walk into a country, and when I hear Paul Ryan, Andrew, say he has a mandate and he's got a united Republican Party, please. This is the same party where that same speaker and his own running mate didn't want to be seen with him 3 weeks before Election Day.
I think a lot of people, and we were talking about this last night too, are wondering what exactly are we going to get from Donald Trump? Are we going to get the same guy as president-elect and as president that we got during the campaign, or was that all a facade? Was it a sales pitch to get you to cast your vote, and then he'll pivot back
What
to
do
the
you
guy
think's
that
the
it was?
worst answer, by the way?
I'm not
You know
sure.
what I mean?
I'm not sure. I'm on it. But for, I think, a lot of people, the first test of Donald Trump over the next couple of days is going to be, how does he handle the groups that are abhorrent to a lot of people that he has emboldened through his candidacy? You talked about the KKK. There were people, the KKK certainly emboldened. And white supremacists are certainly emboldened. I was reading stories today about kindergarten students taunting other kindergartners who are Mexican, saying they're going to be sent to another school or are going to be deported from the country. There were reporters from the Wall Street Journal who got heckled by Trump crowds walking out of the Hilton last night using the same line that Trump used with Billy Bush on the bus, the anatomically inappropriate line. So those people are all emboldened to the point where they feel like their issues are mainstream. Will Trump stamp that down? Will he say that we can't allow this to happen? That's I think, his first test.
And can I tell you, I've heard from a lot of people who say, hey, listen, that was a character, the Trump that you saw during the campaign. He's going to be different as a president. And I say, what are you on? He has not managed through a year and a half, and it worked for him, but for a year and a half, he has not gone 3 days where he has been disciplined, where he hasn't either gone to Twitter, he hasn't gone off script, he hasn't insulted a demographic, attacked a fellow candidate, or whatever else. What leads anyone to believe, and now he won't have the glucose of 20, 30,000 people at cheering events, which he needs in the very fiber of his being, to be able to be the person who will be the great conciliator, who will draw the country together. What evidence have we seen he has the capacity, or more so, Dominic, the interest to do so?
Well, one, Trump, the candidate, was a total show. It was a Broadway show. But I am saying to you, Richard, you cannot walk back, even if he has the best intentions. You can't walk back the things that he's done.
Even though he's the most Teflon candidate I've ever seen in my life?
Richard, I've covered a lot of campaigns. I have never seen people as angry, and I saw women that were angry when Hillary Clinton lost to Obama, and they swore never to. I have never seen the anger that I saw last night, and it's just beginning.
And they're going to be
walk it back.
And I got to tell you one thing. I think it was poor form how it was handled last night at the Clinton headquarters. I think she needed to get out there. Forget the phone call. She needed to get out there, I believe, and recognize Trump. No one's going to remember this after tomorrow, I grant you. But I think what happened today by both Hillary Clinton and also Barack Obama, and the president extending an invitation tomorrow to the White House, they've done their part. They have said, you don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. This is what makes us the greatest democracy. We can have the ugliest campaign known to mankind, but we're still a democracy, and we still have the rule of law, and that will happen tomorrow. Okay. Now, we talked about really briefly here what it lies ahead of us, but already there are fingers pointing backwards as to how did this happen. Up next, election may be over, but the finger pointing, trust me, is just starting. Who's to blame for Clinton's stunning defeat here? And there's a whole host of suspects here that people are saying deserve the blame. Stay with us.